Hey guys, welcome to episode 4 of the We Ship It podcast.
Today, we discuss Elizabeth and Darcy from Pride and Prejudice. These two each have their own moments of, well, Pride and Prejudice, and they learn to grow together throughout the course of the novel.
Yes, so let's talk Austen.
Hey everybody, I'm Devin.
And I'm Steph.
And welcome to the We Ship It podcast. As we mentioned before, today we will be talking about Elizabeth and Darcy from Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice.
I love them. Just saying. I'm going to just admit it right now before we even get into it. So today throughout the episode, we're going to discuss their good and bad moments. We're going to talk about their passion and their growth. We're going to talk about their stubbornness. And of course, we're going to talk about the amazing author who created them as well. So let's dive in.
Shall we?
That was a terrible accent, but I love you.
All right, anyways, so I'll start off. Why do you think Darcy is so attracted to Elizabeth and vice versa?
I love this question.
Do
it. So at first, I think Darcy, he's attracted to her because he's just shocked that he met a woman who he deems to be his intellectual equal, right? Mm-hmm. Like he could have met some women that were his intellectual equal, but I feel like the way that Elizabeth just snaps back at him is something he doesn't experience because he's used to people treating him with such high regard. Right. And he gets excited about this exciting, stimulating new person who meets him where he's at in his conversation ability. So I think at first that's where the attraction comes from. I don't know if the attraction is love at first. Slowly, he learns that treating her like a toy, someone who he can just like quip back and forth with, isn't enough to win her affection. So he has to learn to respect her. And I think that's ultimately why he loves her. She demands something real from him, which so many people in the world, they don't encourage that reality from him. They try to hide the real world away. So her forcing him to respect her as she is and love her, quote, despite the inferiority of her birth, I think that's his eventual attraction. But at first, I think it's just this attraction of, ooh, this is the first woman who's stood up to me. But then it becomes a respect thing. On Elizabeth's side, I think she feels like this is the first guy who's not putting her on airs. This is the first guy who's treating her like an intellectual equal as well. Darcy tells it like it is. He's not the Bingley of the world who hides sweetly in his cloaked manners, right? And he's not Mr. Collins, who's actually daft and doesn't put a great deal of stock in others' valuability. I think she finally realizes this attraction because of her. So first of all, she's pretty stubborn about it, right? Like at first she's like, he's pompous, blah, blah, blah. But I think she's still attracted to him in those moments because he tells it like it is. But in the end, I think the attraction is even just amplified when she finds out what a good guy he is and how he does anything for the people that he loves. So that's really where I find that their attractions come from.
Like you said, Darcy is tired of the everyday English woman, the ones who are attracted to him and his wealth rather than his qualities that he offers as as a person, as a man. And he wants someone who challenges him to be a better person and accept him for who he is and not just his wealth and power. Darcy is at first put off by Elizabeth, but he quickly notices, like you said, not just her beauty, but also her intelligence. And it's also just like a time period thing. Most women were not educated as well as Elizabeth. Even though Elizabeth wasn't taught by the governess. Yes, she was never taught by the governess. She is still so quick-witted and easy on her toes and ready to use her mind to change the world in a sense.
Yes.
And even to counter, to go against something that someone says. So I think that's really cool. She rebukes him and she challenges him, and that's why he's so attracted to her.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
Yeah, Elizabeth, on the other hand, is pragmatic and independent. So she doesn't act in order to expect something to happen. She just acts on her own accord. So in my mind, I almost see her as like Belle from Beauty and the Beast.
I
She's
love that
unlike, yeah,
comparison.
isn't it? She is unlike any other woman in her town, and Darcy quickly notices that. She similarly to Darcy also likes the challenge of wit and banter, and she only starts to reassess her opinion of him once he begins to reveal the motivations for his rude actions. And once she
Yep.
discovers that he is a kind and thoughtful person, she accepts him for who he is, and they kind of go from there.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think it is a growing process for both of them.
Hmm.
Like the attraction is different than their eventual love.
Oh yeah, that you can tell that they have this like connection in a sense, or this immediate like I notice you, but nothing develops until later on.
Yeah. And I think they both become better people because of it, which is something we'll talk a little bit more about later.
For
But
sure.
something that I think that's the reason that this story means so much to me, is because we watch these two people grow together. But second question, what is Austen's message to her readers through the marriages presented throughout the text? What is each of the Bennet sisters' approach to love? So this is a little bit of a two-part question.
Yeah, so the first couple that we'll look into right away is Charlotte and Mr. Collins.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is the reason why I chose this one to start off with is because this is the typical 18th century relationship. Um, it's not based on love, but of finding a partner to spend the rest of your life with. Charlotte knows she will not win a husband over by her beauty or her education. She's not pretty enough to attract someone, and she's not smart enough to really interact with them on those levels. So she's like, I'm not going to be able to do this, so I need to find someone. And Charlotte knows she knows this. So Collins worships Lady Catherine. So upon her request, he was on a search for a wife by any means necessary. He's rejected by Elizabeth. 3 days later, he
Mr.
finds.
Collins.
3 days later, he's like, you know what? I think I'm into Charlotte now.
God, rolling my eyes, but
Yeah, right.
whatever.
So he chose to marry without love and chose a partner only because he had to get married and create a family. So Austin shows the consequences of putting practicality above romance.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I see in my eyes.
I agree with you on that. But another thing I think with the way that Austen writes in other novels, she would have made it more blatantly clear that that it was a bad way to get married if
Hmm.
that's what she wanted to portray through them. I think also though, at least from my understanding of it, Charlotte seems okay, which is something that really
She
challenges
does.
Elizabeth because Elizabeth
Right.
is appalled by this, right?
Hmm.
So I think it is a commentary on the time and
The
how
time
people
period.
got married for
Hmm.
silly things, but also how marriage can be worked on, and it can be worked on to be a good thing even if the love really isn't there. So I next want to talk about one of my favorite couples to talk about, which is Bingley and Jane. So
Aw.
Jane and Bingley have such a sweet, like shy relationship because of their sweet, shy temperaments. But I
Hmm.
think there really is true love there. I think Jane is portrayed as kind of a saint in this tale. And
She
Elizabeth
is.
has a bit more of a bite, a wit and an
Hmm.
edge to her. But that doesn't take away from the charm of Jane's character. I think some more modern novels would try to paint a more divided picture of how the charming saint is not the best way to be and how the quick-witted person is. But I think Austen does such a good job of showing how Jane's temperament is beautiful and Elizabeth's temperament is beautiful too.
Hmm.
And that's a beautiful thing about this tale. And so Bingley, so that's Jane. Bingley is a simple man, pretty much swallowed up by shallow and unnecessarily complex world. This world is not
It's
made for
so
Bingley.
sad.
He's so sweet, but these people
He's
and this
caught in the middle of so much
society,
drama.
yes, and he just doesn't care about it, but he like feels he has to as a duty to his family.
And he just has a kind heart, so he's willing to like appease people for it.
Yes, he really is. He has like, and both of them are saintly. They have
Hmm.
such sweet temperaments, and they deal with people in such a way that just gives me so much respect for them. But their love is true, and it's simple and it's sweet in all
Yeah,
the best
it's
ways.
definitely genuine love.
It is.
There's no doubt about it.
And it's not penetrated by the rude complexities of high society. Like Like at first it is because Darcy, but he puts a lot of stock in Darcy's opinion. But I
Hmm.
think once they eventually get together, they realize that society has nothing on their true love, which I love about them.
I think it's cool how here Austin portrays like a couple in a positive light, one that goes to show that there is a perfect soulmate out there for everyone. Like those two are a perfect match. They complement each other. They both have a pure and honest heart, and they just want to be the best that they can be for each other. So I think that's
Yeah,
really cool.
I love them. I really do.
Next, we'll look into another Bennett sister, Lydia, and her charming Mr. Wickham.
I can't deal with them at all. Not
Aren't
at
they the
all.
worst?
Oh,
They are sadly meant for each other.
it's true. Oh,
But this
God.
relationship is based off of like two people that are naive, and it
Mm-hmm.
is a forced relationship, a
They're
forced marriage.
silly as heck. They're
Yeah,
just
Jane's
silly.
Lydia's main mission in life is to get married, and once that
Mm-hmm.
happens, she's like, "My life is made." Um, she's described as being untamed, unabashed, wild, noisy, and fearless. And you cannot solely blame her, however, because of how she was raised. Her
I
mother plays a
know.
huge influence on her life. And it's sad to see, I mean, it's interesting to see how much power and a parental figure can have on a life. But
Yes.
it's also, you can see the negative consequences that go along with that, which is just painful.
Oh my lord.
Um,
I think Lydia, she doesn't, the thing is everyone looks at her like, "Oh, she's so silly and shallow, blah blah." And she is. She
she
is.
is.
But her family feels the pain of her more than she does. She literally
I
knows she
don't
caused
understand.
scandal.
Yeah,
She doesn't
I don't.
care.
Do you think she knows that she knows?
Um, maybe she's ignorant of it, but at the same time, I think she understands that what she did, at the very least running
Hmm.
away with him, is something that her other sisters wouldn't do. And but she's happy with that image. That's not to say it's healthy. I think both of them are not healthy.
Yeah,
But especially because Wickham is really self-centered and he's heartless
he's
and he
selfish. Yeah.
puts himself above, and he did this with Georgiana, which is Darcy's sister
Hmm.
too. He tried to sweep her off her feet just to get money. Um, but Lydia, like you said, they're made
It
for each other.
backfired for him.
Yes, they're made for each other. He has to deal with who Mr. Bennett calls one of the silliest
Hmm.
women.
It's just sad to see like the family is scared and worried about her,
Yep.
and for her safety. And she finds this all as like a joke and laughs her way
Yep.
through her visit with them. Um, after the wedding, she even goes as far as to rub it in Jane's face that she got married before her elder sister. I'm just like,
Hmm.
what is wrong with you?
Oh my God. I can't. I
She's like, you are
cannot handle
below
it.
me now, Jane, below
Yep.
me.
I love it. And
Uh,
so that
kills me.
relationship is such like a stark contrast to the rest of the relationships that I really do love.
Hmm.
I love looking at it. But so the next relationship I'm going to touch on, I know we said Bennett sisters, but I want to talk about Mr. and Mrs. Bennett. These two are
Yeah.
like my favorite. Like, he definitely sometimes treats her with the wave of his hand. Like, he can be a bit dismissive of some of the things
Yeah,
his
but
wife
like, do
cares
you
about.
blame him?
No, I don't blame him. And honestly, I think he's dismissive, but he's not dismissive at heart. I think he loves her. I think he really does. Like, he cares about her
Yeah.
in a lot of the different scenes. But I think that she does make things a little bit more dramatic than they should be. So maybe he does balance her out well. And I think Mrs. Bennett is overly anxious and definitely lets it take over her marriage, but he has such a
Hmm.
passive way to him that he doesn't let it ruin it.
Right.
But I think they really do love each other.
Yeah. Mrs. Bennett acts as like the mother hen throughout the entire course of the novel, like
Yep.
hovering over her chicks. If for teachers out there or whatever, like we have this saying like the helicopter, the
Mm-hmm.
the helicopter parent, she's that person, but
Yep.
in not in the school realm, but in like the relationship realm. She spends more time on prepping her girls for her marriage than focusing on her own and building it up. That's my
Mm-hmm.
own thought. Like, I don't think she puts in the work for her own marriage as she does for her daughter's marriages.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she even goes as far as to sacrifice her daughter's health and safety for the sake of seeing them wedded off. With Jane sending her in the rain, and with Lydia eloping, and she's really sad about it, and you can tell that she's devastated, but she also does not have as much care or passion in that, as opposed to when she finds out that she's married.
Mm-hmm. No, I know. It's crazy.
Kitty has similar ideals to Lydia and acts as her own as her younger shadow throughout the text. She's like the little bee that follows Lydia around. So she's not mature enough to be in the world. She's just a part of
Yeah.
it. She's not necessarily there to really take it all in and analyze it and see through the darkness of it all. So, whereas Mary, on the other hand, is the far left of that. She's only focused. She has no care in the world for a marriage. She only wants to focus on her books, and that is her life.
Yep.
Although no one else could, like, you might be able to say like this is a great thing, but some people could also say this is a poor way to live your life, being so recluse that you are not a part of the world around you. So Mary and Kitty are both part of the world, but in different ways they separate themselves from the world itself. So question number 3: is it true that you marry a family, not just a person?
Yes, like, oh yes. I can speak from experience on this one, but also, like, if you look at any love story, if you look at any like
Mm-hmm.
literature couple, this is true. Not only did your partner grow up with a group of people that, helped shape them into who they are. So in that sense, you live with all of those things that your partner represents from their family at all times, but also their family becomes your family. You kind of marry yourself into that family. And the thing is, in Pride and Prejudice, Darcy worries so much about Jane's family at first when Bingley's sort of first falling in love with her, because he doesn't want Bingley to be associated with that
Right.
family. He knows that you can't escape a person's family when you're in a relationship with them at all. Like, and that's ultimately why, like, Bingley's sister and Darcy are all like, oh, like, Charles, you can't be serious, because he's getting involved with a family that they find ridiculous. So to some extent, like, yes, the family you're marrying into a family.
Mm-hmm.
However, you have to also consider that you have to love the person no matter what. And if the family
Correct.
has flaws, like, you just kind of deal with it.
Right.
And that's what Darcy ultimately comes to understand, and Bingley as well.
Yeah,
What
I
do you
agree.
think?
I think family is so important. And after all, like, your partner is who they are because of their family. They've helped them. They've helped shape them. And if you cannot accept them, then you're not really accepting your partner wholly and completely for who they are.
True.
Family is everything, and it should definitely be kept in mind when looking for someone to potentially marry. While it's not like a make it or break it kind of deal, I think it is definitely something that you have to keep in mind
Mm-hmm.
when looking for someone.
Number 4. Does Elizabeth have a right to judge or think lower of Charlotte for the choice to marry Mr. Collins?
Yes, yes, she does.
Oh my gosh, Devin, how rude!
I mean, in my mind, Charlotte is a gold digger. She even says like, "I am not romantic. You."
Devin!
Sorry. She's like, "I'm not romantic. You know, I never was. I ask only a comfortable home, and considering Mr. Collins' character, connection, and his situation in life, I'm convinced that my chance of happiness with him is as fair as most people can boast on entering the marriage state." And I'm just like, what is wrong with you? Why are you leaving your happiness up to chance? That's not what it's supposed to be. Um, Anyways, she knows she is not investing in this marriage to be happy, but to be safe. Her fears of ending up alone or being a burden to her parents are too overwhelming, so she jumps ship at the first offer. I cannot outright call.
Devin!
I'm sorry. I can't outright call her a coward because I understand the time period and
Yeah,
she made the practical call.
she
But
did.
I'm just disappointed in her choice, and I think Elizabeth also should be as well.
I think yes. Okay, disappointed in her
I would
choice.
never jeopardize my happiness in order to be settled in life.
You know what? You're 100% right on that bit.
Boom,
Did you just boom at me?
boom.
Excuse me. Okay,
Drop the
look.
mic.
Look, Charlotte. Okay. Elizabeth has a right to think whatever she wants. But to impose
True.
judgment, I don't think she has a right to impose judgment.
Mm-mm.
As her friend, it's her job to ask her if it's what she really wants and to see if she's okay with it. But what Elizabeth does, other than just saying, "Are you okay with this? Are you sure?" She also judges her for it to her face, which I find a little bit problematic because Elizabeth shows her own prejudice in ways as well. She can't possibly understand why Charlotte would want to be with someone with a mind like Colin's. And I think she's a believer in true and real love, not just building a relationship based off of nothing. But the thing that I mentioned before, Charlotte ends up okay in the end. You know,
Does she?
maybe I think she does, as far as we know. Um,
Yeah, I mean, she can live that life, but she won't be happy with it.
and Devin, I agree. You should never sacrifice the chance at true and real love. But I
Hmm.
don't think
I know what you
Elizabeth
mean,
has a
though.
right to judge her because Charlotte's in a much
As
different
a friend, you should
position.
be there to support her regardless of the decisions that she makes.
Yeah,
But
and also Elizabeth has like Elizabeth, her mom even calls her a foolish, headstrong child because she
hmm
kind of is. Like, I understand I would never like marry someone just because like I wanted to be comfortable. But Charlotte's in a different position. You know, she comes from a poor family. She doesn't have options. She's almost what, 30? I forget what age they said she was, but she doesn't
27,
really
I
have an
believe.
option. And this is what the society put on people. You have to make this choice or you're going to die alone and not have any
I
property.
get it. I don't agree with it, but I
Devin.
get it.
Yeah, and like that's the thing. Like, obviously, I hate that she ends up with Mr. Collins, but she makes the best out of Mr. Collins, like
I think
that
it
he could
works
ever
out.
be.
I also think it works out in the benefit of the Bennets as well because like he could have gotten anyone, but he decided to choose Elizabeth's friend. So at least Charlotte will be
Thank
able
God.
to, at least Charlotte will be able to like hold him back if he ever would have chosen to decide to kick the Bennets out.
hmm
So
Yeah,
I think
thank
that
God.
is helpful in mind as well.
Thank God.
Anyways, moving on. I don't.
Yes.
We'll agree to whatever. Okay.
Don't even come at me, Devin. Oh my gosh.
I'm just teasing.
No. Okay.
Number 5. So
Yeah.
this one, we're gonna look at the opening line of the text. So I want to know what your thoughts
hmm
are, and I'll read it for
Ooh.
you. It is truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife.
This quote, and I actually took a class on Jane Austen in college,
You
which I
did.
loved. Yes, I
Fancy.
did. And we read like almost all of the things she wrote except for some of her short stories. And I find this quote, I find it to either be funny or to not really make sense. And here's what I'm talking about. So I'm never really sure why Austen wanted to start Pride and Prejudice here. I think it might be, and this is something that I've mulled over in my head a lot. I personally think it might be Mrs. Bennet's first thought. I think that
Hmm.
we get the opening of the book from Mrs. Bennet's perspective, and it pulls us into the fact that this story is going to be a marriage story. And what
Mm-hmm.
better way to start a marriage story than with the biased, like wanting to get all 5 of my daughters married type person?
I
I'm
could
not
see
really
that.
sure. Yeah, and also I think it could be ironic. Austen is very funny in a lot of ways, and she likes to include humor in her books. And not every man in this story is seeking a wife or seeking a wife for the right purposes. They just end up with women. So I find it's kind of ironic and a kind of funny way to start. I love her wit in that way, and I think it's
hmm
witty more than anything else, but I'm not sure exactly why. What do you think?
So I mean, this line is well known across all realms of literature. So in my mind, I see it that the opening line acts for Austen as the chorus did for Shakespeare in Romeo and Juliet. It
Yep.
sets the reader up for what is to unfold in the text. It's like, okay, here, buckle up because you're about to see women scramble to secure the dreamy single men that they all desire, and some wry commentary on the time period along the way. So just prepare yourself for this, get ready because it's coming at you. Um, and that's kind of what the chorus does. It tells the story so that you are ready to see it unfold. So that's why I see you there.
I like
Austen
that.
also reminds her readers that marriage is not always about love and passion, but also about more practical things like,
Yep.
say, possession and good fortune.
Yes, Austin, I love you. I don't know if you can hear me, Miss Austin, but you are my freaking hero. Okay, next question. Is playing hard to get useful in attracting a partner?
Interesting. um,
Yes.
I mean, I guess in some cases maybe, but for me, I don't think so. I get the reasoning for it. Like, you want to cause them to, like, cause more attraction, um, because they don't know how you feel about them, so they're more enticed to think about you, and then they realize like, oh, maybe I am in love with you, but I don't get it. Like, why would you try to hide your feelings when you both want the same thing? Like, sure, as an audience member or a reader, it's amusing to watch. But in real life, it just doesn't make sense. It's just a mess that I don't want to like deal with. So just give it to me
I get
straight.
that.
Just
I
give it to
mean,
me straight.
the thing is, it certainly worked in Elizabeth's case. Like,
Yeah,
it
it did, but
was never her
she didn't
intent,
know. She
is the
didn't know
difference.
that. She didn't
Yeah.
know that she wanted him.
It was never her intent. However,
Right.
when he did propose, she was like, nah. And it
She
ended
was.
up making him change his life,
I
right?
think she was blown out of the water because she was like, "Wait, what?
She was like,
You're
well,
interested
so
in
that's
me?"
something I want to talk about later, the difference between the movie and the book, because in the book you get a lot more of Darcy's perspective. And in the
Mm-hmm.
movie it's just kind of like, wait, what the heck? Like
Yeah.
he likes her. But either way. I don't think it was ever her intent. I think when it comes to hard to get, like being hard to get, I think it can drive attraction, but it doesn't feed love
No.
necessarily. It
No.
depends on the person. Like, I think Darcy was yearning for something true, anything true. Like, people just blew smoke up his butt all the time, but I think he was yearning for something true finally. And he had to do some personal work before finding something before he found himself and deserved someone true. So in their case, it may have been good for them because by Elizabeth playing hard to get, he really had to find himself before he was worthy of her. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I think ultimately in most cases, especially in real life, playing hard to get is good for an attraction, creating an attraction, but it's not good for creating real love.
Yeah, it depends on what you want out of the relationship.
Yep.
Like, are you in this just for the fling of it, or are you actually interested in creating something genuine?
Exactly.
So the next question that we'll look into is: do you think Elizabeth and Darcy will be happy? So all their family members, I think her dad and Jane specifically asked this question of Elizabeth. Do you think they will be happy? Do you think happiness in marriage is a matter of chance, like Charlotte
Devin,
says?
you might disagree with me on this. I'm not sure,
Oh boy.
but I'm not really sure. I really do think that they'll be happy. I think they find something real and true in one another. Um, I think they don't tiptoe around one another. So I think they'll be able to address real problems, like their pride and prejudice, for example.
Mm,
But they also have mutual respect. Both understand both the good and bad in one another, and they've seen it work. So it's not like they're just going to tiptoe around these problems that come up in the
right.
future. And then to address the more broad question of, do you think happiness in marriage is a matter of chance? Happiness in marriage, it's not always chance. I think a lot of hard work goes into being truly happy in marriage. Love, though, is hugely an important part of it. But marriage also makes it takes a lot of mutual respect and communication to create a truly happy space between two people. But also, love is important. There's a lot that goes into the formula, that marriage potion that makes it work. Chance is, to me, always a part of everything. So we can't leave it out. But marriage and happiness in marriage in general is not all guided by chance. I think there's some part to your work in it, and there's some part to love being a part of it as well. What do you think?
So I know you think I'm going to disagree, but I'm actually going to agree.
Oh, praise God. Look at that.
I do. I really do. Their relationship is unlike any of the others in that text. While Jane and Bingley are certainly going to be happy together, I think Elizabeth and Darcy will be even more successful because they challenge each other to be better people and learn from their mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Their love is one of intellect and spirit that prevails everything it faces. It's outside of the 18th century realm of a perfect relationship, and it goes to show that the relationships with a foundation in love and learning only make the partners involved that much more stronger. Um, in my mind, I think Charlotte's a fool, and
Devin.
I don't think
Oh
she
my
will ever be
gosh.
happy.
So many harsh feelings about Charlotte. I'm going to tell
I'm
her.
sorry.
Next question. So, what do Darcy and Elizabeth have that other famous literary couples do not?
I love this question. Um, so I think Darcy and Elizabeth's love prevails difficulty. And the couple that I am going to look at specifically is going to be Gatsby and Daisy from The Great Gatsby. So as soon as Jay and Daisy are confronted with reality, all hell breaks loose, and their love for each other crumbles before it even has a chance to strengthen its roots. Whereas, in my eyes, Darcy and Elizabeth fight through the messy and come out together. Darcy reevaluates himself and the choices he's made, and he also decides to work on himself for Elizabeth. Whereas Daisy wouldn't do that for Jay. She wouldn't even think about doing that for Jay, changing herself. She was too caught up in her own social status to think about how she could leave her old self and become anew. Additionally, when Elizabeth is confronted by Lady Catherine, the queen of social status in the novel,
Ugh.
she outright tells her that she will make her own choices and does not need her approval or voice in who she marries. Those words would never have left Daisy's mouth.
Oh,
Daisy
no.
ran away from confrontation whenever it reared its head, which is partly why Jay and Daisy never worked. So that's like, if I was looking at a couple, they have this ability to just connect and work through things, whereas Jay and Daisy did not try to work through anything. And I think it's also because of the complexity of their relationship. But in just this two-faced real quick look, I think that's really what separates Elizabeth and Darcy from Gatsby and Daisy.
I agree. And Elizabeth and Darcy are like one of my favorite couples because of all that they've been through and all that they've done to change in good ways for each other, not necessarily change in bad ways. So, when I look at them, when I look at Darcy and Elizabeth, I feel like they have a good balance between spark and romance. Both parts are there, but it's a good balance. Reality and respect. They're somewhere in the middle of that. You look at other certain couples like Romeo and Juliet, they are all passion and no sense at
Mm-hmm.
all. And look what happens to them. They end up dying for one another. And, that's extreme. But then you look at couples like Charlotte and Mr. Collins, like we talked about before, who get married solely for societal purposes, for
Mm-hmm.
completely for a sensible purpose. Both have their issues. You see all spark, you see all sense. Those are not good relationships. But Elizabeth and Darcy, they have both. They have like this romantic, intense spark, but they also have a reality to them that they're able to work through stuff together. And I think that one scene in the Keira Knightley version of the movie, when they're sitting on the table at the end and they're talking about what Mr. Darcy should call her, which I love this scene. You experience them as a couple. And I think it's symbolic of what they're going to experience in the future. They go back and forth with each other. She says some witty stuff about what he should call her. And then but not only are they having a witty conversation, they're doing it in absolute respect and absolute admiration and awe for the other person.
Mm-hmm.
But also there's that spark. I mean, dang, that spark. I'm just like, you guys go into the bedroom. I love it. And it really
You're too
shows
funny.
it really does well to show their balance that they've created in that relationship. That's what I love, that like you can probably pinpoint some bad things about their relationship, but every relationship has,
Oh, yeah.
flaws.
There's always
Um,
the flaws
I
that you
think
can
theirs
see,
is
but
one of the most like unflawed that I know of, though.
ooh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So since you brought up the movie, let's compare the movie version of Pride and Prejudice to the text. What are your thoughts on that? What are some moments
Yes.
for you?
So I don't have too much perspective on the BBC series. I'm going to be honest right now. It's been a while since I've seen that one. But if we're talking the Keira Knightley version, one of my
Mm-hmm.
favorites, by the way, it
She
does
knows it by
so.
heart.
I literally know it by heart. Me and Devin were watching it, and I could quote the whole thing. But I think it does well to portray the book. Obviously, there are some differences, one of which that I find is really striking, which we talked a little bit about before. We get a lot more of Darcy's inner feelings throughout the book, which gives us a perspective we don't get in the movie. That's why I think in the movie, it's so surprising when he proposes. You mentioned this yesterday a little bit. You were like, what did he do to make her feel like she should want him?
Right.
But in the book, you get these little snippets where he starts to like her and you start to see it, whereas in the movie, you don't. Like when he starts to think about her brown eyes and he starts to worry about
Mm,
the feelings that he has might be troublesome to the world and his family. We do miss a bit of that in the movie. So that's something I think the book does really well. On the other hand, I think we get more romance from the movie. This may be because of the modernization and the Hollywood nature of the film. You know, they have to sell it, they have to make people
right.
want it. It's a love story. But with Austen's absolutely amazing ability to create characters and relationships, I would love to have seen her add a bit more of an illustration of that spark that she refers to. Because I think it's clear that they have a spark in the novel. I just don't think it's as clear as the movie.
Okay.
But yeah, what do you think?
No, I agree. I think they did a really good job of showing their development in the relationship in the movie. You can really see the moments when it develops. I do think they changed some things that, like you said, you don't see how Darcy reflects back on or notices certain things about Elizabeth, but I do think they did a really good job on focusing on their relationship and making that blossom in front of your eyes. So I think that was cool.
I agree. Okay, next question.
Mm-hmm.
A true or false question.
Ooh, new one. Spicing it
Yes,
up.
spicing it up. True or false? A good marriage challenges both partners to grow.
Yes. True. True. If it doesn't, the marriage will get stale. For example, look no further than Mr. and Mrs. Bennett. Um, no one is perfect, and if you can find someone who not only compliments you and your character, but encourages you to be a better person, then hold tight onto that person
Heck
and never
yes.
let them go.
Yes.
Because isn't the goal in life to continue to grow, learn, and change as a person to become better?
Always.
Why should a
Always.
partner in a marriage not be a support system in helping you achieve this? Elizabeth and
Mm-hmm.
Darcy are a perfect example of this. They set aside their prideful nature and sift through their prejudices to get down to what's really bothering them and what's important in life.
Yes, Devin. Yes. True, true, true. I can't say true enough. A marriage is made up of two people, and we know people are flawed beings, right? It's essential that these
Humanity
beings
is a
grow.
flawed creature.
Yes, we could go very far into that. We could go down the black hole of that. But two people have different experiences, different personalities. They have to grow if they're going to live together, if they're going to experience the world together. Um, it's essential if they're going to progress into a healthy relationship. I think Elizabeth and Darcy have a great foundation for this because they took that time to learn themselves and learn each other before jumping in, before
Hmm.
saying yes. And I feel like they have a more open and honest relationship framework to go off of. It makes them more stable because they're willing to become unstable and fix it and
Right.
create a true and lasting stability in the long run.
They're
You
both
know?
able to point out not only their own flaws, but also the other person's flaws and work through that. Which is also similar to what we talked about with Nick and Jess in our last episode. Like they're able to tell each other what they don't like about themselves and about each other and try to like conquer those fears and doubts about themselves.
It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I love it. I love it. I love it. Which
All
brings
right.
us to our last question.
Last question. Do we ship it?
I really, really, really do.
Obviously.
I don't know if it's totally what Austen would have wanted. You know, I don't know. I'm not in her head, but I do get the sense that she shipped them in the end. I have
Hmm.
always loved this story because the two are so dynamic and they move together and they change together. And also, they're just so passionate, which is something that so many of these old timey love stories either miss completely or they over exaggerate the passion. And we're going to talk about some stories where they just over exaggerate that passion, like I think Wuthering Heights, but you guys can tell me different if
Oh.
you want. But
Oh.
some of these old timey stories, they either don't have passion at all or they have too
Right.
much. And I love this perfect
It's
relationship
a
that I
it's a
think
nice
Austen
balance
has
for
created.
sure.
Awesome. Okay, thanks. So now on to our comments from the audience. So we had one person write in. We had Amaya write in on her thoughts and feelings about Elizabeth and Darcy.
Yes, thank you, Amaya. And here's what she wrote. I think that Elizabeth and Darcy are the perfect couple. The fact that they started off hating each other just makes their romance that much stronger. They are so different, yet they're the ultimate power couple, both strong in their own way.
I love that because we just talked about how I thought at least they were the perfect couple.
Right.
And I think it does stem from that change from hating each other, being stubborn, and then learning how to love each other.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's great. And now the moment you've all been waiting for, the announcement of our next episode.
Right, so here we go. On episode 5, we'll be analyzing Peeta and Katniss from The Hunger Games.
Woo! Okay, so these two hold a special place in my heart, like all of these couples, honestly. But because one, I love the Hunger Games, and two, this is what Devin and I call each other for some strange reason. Okay, we talk about it a little bit more in our intro episode, and I'm not sure the origin. I really still am not.
I don't
but
have anything.
but it exists. Devin's name is in my phone still as Peeta. I don't know why, but I love you, bud. And this is going to be a fun episode.
It really is going to be fun. Yes, please feel free to send in your thoughts on these two, this lovely couple. Do you love them? Do you hate them? What are your thoughts on them? So please feel free to email us at weshipitpodcast@gmail.com or join our forum at weshipitpodcast.wixsite.com/weshipit.
Yes, and of course, if you like the podcast, please follow and rate it on Anchor or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. It really, really helps. And as always, follow us on Facebook, Insta, and Twitter. Thank you guys so much for listening. You all make me completely, perfectly, and incandescently happy.
We love you guys. Take care, guys.